Hello there, you're watching Wilhelm Miniatures. In this episode, I'm going to paint some miniatures from our new project, Exquisite Corpse. You've probably done this game yourself. It's where you fold a piece of paper and you're only allowed to see one part, and then you send it to the next person, who sends it to the next person. And in the end, you have something horrible like this. The Exquisite Corpse miniature collection is created by Anna of Cards of Ecte, Andrew of Meridian Miniatures, and myself, Wilhelm Miniatures. And we tried to do something similar, but with miniatures. So this is an example. Each of us made a few bits, heads, torsos, arms, legs, and then sent them to each other without showing what we had done until the others received the bits. So on this one, Anna made the tail, Andrew made the torso, and I made the head. When creating the head, I would never imagine that this would be the result. In this way, all three of us have contributed to each sculpt or each miniature for the collection. I started out on these with a zenithal primer, a black primer from below and white from above, to give it a little bit of light and shadow to begin with. Although I think they turned out a little bit too dark, so now I am bringing up the highlights and actually also brightening up like the mid section, or like the middle tone, leaving it a little bit more gray than black by softly dry brushing some white over it. So I want the center part around the face and the torso here to be almost like a human skin tone. Maybe even some yellow in it as a contrast for the blue-green that's going to come. Or maybe not a contrast, but a transition. Because the skin tone, or this Rakeland flesh shade, does have quite a lot of red in it. So it's good to have some sepia at hand too, to have it a little bit of yellow before starting with the green tones. Then I have this green contrast paint, the Plague Bearer Flesh, I think it's called, which is a good transition color too, because it's still quite warm. And then finally the Coelia green shade is what I'm applying now, which is very blue, very cold, and quite extreme. But it dries much matter and much more transparent than what this feels like. It's good to do these steps at the same time, because then you can pick up some of the underlying color or the color that's beside it and blend it in. Here I'm using the gray contrast paint for the fly. I want them to appear in like a similar paint style, but different colors. Although not too different colors, so I am going to mix in a little bit of what I used on the main figure. Maybe just the cold colors, so I'm not going in with the skin tones here. Keeping it cold, a little bit of blue, green, which you might see on flies and stuff, and beetles. When they shine, they have they tend to have a bit of or flies at least tend to have a bit of a blue-green tone on them. I'm not actually sure what I'm doing. I'm just putting on whatever was closest, and I'll fix it later, I guess. The point is to keep it close to the main miniature, because I don't want to deviate too much from the colors that I've already been using, to have a coherent color scheme. I really like painting in this way, and it's extraordinary how far you can get with just one layer of paint initially. So this is all done in one round, not letting it dry in between, and just blending the colors on top of each other. Now we are over to a more tedious step, which I think is very fun actually. that is to bring out the first few highlights to make all the shapes a bit more three-dimensional. This is actually watered down white, it's pure white. Sometimes I use off-whites, grays for this step, depending on if I want a cold or warm tone for the lighting, but it works with pure white as well, and then you don't have to think too much. Because if you water it down to a transparent consistency, the underlying paint will shine through a little bit, making it so that the result is not pure white. It's just lighter than the underlying tone. I'm probably going back over with another white highlight after this step. When I paint like this, I usually go back and forth between adding some shades or some glazes and then going back to highlights, and back and forth until I have a good result. And usually it's better the more times I do this, so I basically do it until I'm tired of it. Also adding some blue shades around the areas that's kind of looks infected, the spikes and stuff, where it looks like there is some hard horns or spikes or shell pieces kind of growing from the body. So I tried to focus a little bit of red around the loincloth, as I think I'm just going to keep the loincloth kind of white, not to introduce a new color or whitish off-white type, with a little bit of blue in the shadows here, which is a good contrast to the red on the more human-like torso. I also went with some very blue, the deep blue-green shade around the wounds, as if the kind of fish parts or the scales are coming from within, that a bit like an old werewolf transition, except this one is turning into a blue crab. While I think about what to do next, I just base coat or base the bases with the watered down gray. So the fabric parts on these, they aren't really contrasting enough from the skin, or in this case here, it doesn't contrast. This part doesn't contrast the rough enough because it's the same color, obviously. So I think I'm going to make them a little bit more gray brown. I still want to keep them, keep the fabric parts a cold color to contrast the reddish tint on the skin. So I have thinned down this gray contrast paint with some contrast medium. I also have the brown and black contrast paints ready over here. I like to have them ready in case I need them. Maybe a bit of brown could work. I don't think I'm going for black because I think it's too covering. I still want this to be a light color so that I can go over it again with some white highlights. I tried something new with these when I based them, and this is actually a mix of white glue and baking powder. So in some areas it started to bubble and actually sizzle a bit, which was cool. I'm not sure if I would do it again though, because it ended up very soft and I had to seal everything again with several layers of white glue. But yeah, anyway, to make this maybe a little bit warmer, I'm starting here with it's a neutral green. It's the Mortarion Grime color, which I like quite a lot. It's not warm, so I'm going to mix in some sepia too, but I think sepia on its own might be a bit too much. When the tops of the bases had dried, I painted the edges black, and I think these are finished. Follow the link in the description for the Kickstarter to be able to get some of these, either these three as a small collection, or the entire thing of all the miniatures created. by us for the Exquisite Corpse project.